The Last Three Players Part 2. The first month passed surprisingly peacefully. Not for the world, for us. Every morning I woke up to the sound of waves instead of alarms. Instead of running from zombies, I ate breakfast on the deck. Instead of fighting for resources, we had enough supplies to last years. The difference between our situation and everyone else's was almost unfair. At sunrise, Maya practiced wind control. At sunset, Chloe practiced water control. And every night we watched the distant glow of burning cities on the horizon. The apocalypse had arrived, but it felt far away, too far away, and that worried me, because the game never allowed things to stay easy. Maya mastered her ability first. At the beginning, she could only create simple gusts. A week later, she could push large objects. 2 weeks later, she could propel herself across the deck with bursts of wind. After a month, she could create powerful currents capable of moving sections of the ocean's surface. The day she accidentally launched a metal chair overboard, Chloe laughed for 10 minutes. I didn't mean to, the chair disagrees. It attacked me first. The chair, yes, I shook my head, you two are impossible. But despite the jokes, we all understood something important. Our powers were growing. And unlike the first timeline, these abilities didn't seem to damage us. Strength had demanded constant fighting. Time travel had consumed energy faster than it could recover, but wind and water felt different. The more Maya and Chloe practiced, the stronger they became, without any visible drawbacks. That alone convinced me that the second timeline had already become better than the first. The second month brought new problems. The internet was still partially functioning. Satellites remained active. Some communication networks survived. That allowed us to observe what was happening on land, and what we saw terrified us. At first, players had worked together. Large survivor groups formed inside schools, military bases, stadiums, and fortified buildings. Many communities actually seemed successful. Then the game began introducing additional challenges. Mutated zombies appeared. Special infected creatures emerged. Zombie hordes grew larger. Safe zones fell one after another. Resources became scarce, and gradually cooperation began turning into competition. We watched live streams whenever connections survived. The scenes were heartbreaking. People argued over food. Friends accused each other of stealing supplies. Entire groups fought over medicine. Some survivors became heroes. Others became monsters. Humanity wasn't only fighting zombies anymore, it was fighting itself. One particular alliance became famous. They called themselves the Fortress. Nearly 300 players gathered inside an old military installation. For a while they looked unstoppable. They had weapons, food, vehicles, defenses. The internet treated them like humanity's last hope. For weeks they survived every attack. Then the game made an announcement, and everything changed. New event activated. Ability evolution tokens have been released. Every player immediately became interested. The tokens could permanently strengthen abilities. Stronger powers meant higher survival chances. Naturally, everyone wanted them. The problem was that only a limited number existed. Within days, survivors started competing, then fighting, then killing. The fortress collapsed less than 2 weeks later, not because zombies breached their walls, because their own members turned against each other. 47 players died in a single night. The remaining survivors scattered. The strongest alliance in the world destroyed itself. The game had won again. Months passed. The population dropped rapidly. Every day fewer players remained. At sea we continued our routine, training, fishing, studying, surviving. But we never stopped watching. And gradually a frightening pattern emerged. Every major survivor group eventually collapsed. Some ran out of food. Some were overrun by zombies. Some tore themselves apart from internal conflicts. None survived. The game seemed specifically designed to create distrust, to force players into impossible situations. The longer someone survived, the harder survival became. Eventually, everyone was pushed toward violence. Exactly like the first timeline, only faster. Near the end of the third month, the announcement arrived. The one I feared most, the one I remembered, the one that destroyed everything in the previous timeline. The sky darkened, even above the ocean. Massive red letters appeared across the clouds. The entire world saw them. Final survival phase initiated. I felt my stomach twist. No, I whispered. Maya immediately noticed my expression. What is it? I know this announcement. Chloe slowly stood. The voice continued. Only one player may claim victory. Silence. Absolute silence. Even the ocean seemed still. Then the next message appeared. All other players must be eliminated. Maya cursed. Chloe stared at the sky, and I felt a terrible sense of déjà vu. It was happening again, the same rule, the same nightmare, the same game. Except this time we weren't trapped among the survivors. We were hidden at sea, and that made all the difference. The effect was immediate. Whatever cooperation remained vanished overnight. Every survivor understood the same thing. Eventually, only one person could win. Friendships shattered, alliances dissolved, trust disappeared. The internet filled with betrayal stories. Former teammates hunted one another, groups split apart. Some players surrendered to despair. Others became ruthless. The death rate skyrocketed. Within weeks, thousands of remaining players disappeared. Many died fighting zombies, many died fighting each other. The game didn't care. A death was a death. And every death reduced the number of competitors. One evening we sat in the ship's dining room watching an old Survivor broadcast. The signal was weak. The image constantly flickered, but the message was clear. The survivor on screen looked exhausted. Behind him, a city burned. "We thought we could win together," he said. "We were wrong." His voice trembled. The game never intended that. The transmission suddenly ended, gone, no signal. No explanation, just silence. Maya leaned back. "How many players do you think are left?" I checked the leaderboard floating inside the game interface. The number shocked me. 322. Chloe nearly dropped her cup. That's it. When the apocalypse began, there had been millions. Now only a few hundred remained, and the number kept falling every day. By the fourth month, the world had become unrecognizable. Entire countries were silent. Cities stood abandoned. Roads were empty. Civilization had effectively ended. Meanwhile, our cruise ship continued drifting safely across the ocean. The contrast felt surreal. One world burned, the other floated peacefully across blue water. Sometimes guilt bothered me. Why were we surviving so easily while everyone else suffered? Then I remembered the first timeline, the betrayals, the deaths, the hopelessness, and the guilt faded. We had earned this second chance. The discovery happened completely by accident. It started with a joke, a stupid joke, the kind that changes everything. Maya was scrolling through her game menu while we ate dinner. She suddenly laughed. "What? There's literally a button called Remove Player." Chloe blinked. "Wait, what?" Maya turned her screen around. Sure enough, hidden deep inside the menu was an option. Remove Player from game. We stared at it. None of us remembered seeing it before. "Why would that exist?" Chloe asked. I frowned. "It shouldn't." The game wanted players competing. Why offer a way out? The option made no sense, which immediately made it interesting. For several hours we investigated. The button required confirmation, lots of confirmation. Warnings appeared repeatedly. Removing a player counts as elimination. All abilities will be lost. This action cannot be reversed. Maya leaned forward. "Wait." I looked at her. "What?" She pointed at the warning. "Read that again." I did, then my eyes widened. Chloe stood so quickly her chair nearly fell over. None of us spoke for several seconds. Because we had all noticed the same thing. The game didn't say the player would die. It only said the player would be counted as eliminated. Those were completely different things. Very different. "What if," Chloe began. "What if elimination isn't the same as death?" My heart started pounding. The idea sounded ridiculous, but so had time travel. So had infinite money, so had zombie apocalypses. The game's wording was always precise, always. And this wording seemed intentional. We spent the entire night discussing possibilities. What if eliminated players simply became normal humans? What if they lost their powers but kept their lives? What if the game only cared about removing competitors? The more we analyzed it, the more plausible it became. A loophole. A real loophole. Possibly the only loophole in the entire game, and if we were right, then all three of us could survive. Not just one, all three. For the first time since the apocalypse began, genuine hope returned. Not survival, not temporary safety. Hope. The possibility that we could actually beat the game, together. The possibility that nobody needed to betray anyone. The possibility that friendship might win after all. But before we could test the theory, one problem remained. We needed to survive until every other player was gone. And according to the leaderboard, there were still hundreds left. The final phase of the game had only just begun, and somewhere out there the last survivors were still fighting desperately for victory. For the next several weeks, the three of us watched the leaderboard obsessively. Every morning, every afternoon, every night, the number kept falling. 322 players remaining then. 291 players remaining then. 248 players remaining. The decrease became faster and faster. The final phase of the game was destroying what little remained of humanity. Far away on land, survivors were still fighting. Not because they wanted to, because the game forced them to. Every remaining player knew that only one winner could exist. And every day that rule pushed people closer to desperation. One evening we managed to intercept a weak broadcast from the mainland. A group of 12 players had barricaded themselves inside a shopping mall. At first things seemed normal. Then the argument started. We agreed to share supplies. We don't have enough anymore. You're lying. The broadcast ended with gunfire. The next morning the leaderboard dropped from 12 players in that region to only 3. Nobody said anything during breakfast. We already knew what had happened. As the months continued, powerful survivors emerged. The weakest players disappeared first, then average players. Eventually only the strongest remained. Some possessed terrifying abilities: fire manipulation, lightning control, teleportation, metal control, enhanced regeneration. We learned their names through broadcasts and survivor reports. People began calling them the kings and queens of the apocalypse. For a while it looked like they might survive forever. Then they started fighting each other. One by one they disappeared. The game didn't care how strong someone became. Eventually everyone faced someone stronger, or made a single mistake, or simply ran out of luck. 6 months after the apocalypse began, fewer than 50 players remained. The world had become eerily quiet. Cities stood empty. Roads cracked, buildings slowly decayed, zombie hordes wandered without purpose. Nature had already begun reclaiming abandoned places. Meanwhile our cruise ship continued drifting peacefully across the ocean. We had enough food, enough water, enough supplies, enough hope. For the first time I genuinely believed we might win. Then the number dropped to 10. That was when everything became tense. Very tense, because every remaining player was incredibly dangerous. Any one of them might somehow discover our existence. Any one of them might come after us. For several days we barely slept. We monitored communications constantly, prepared emergency plans, reviewed escape routes, checked supplies repeatedly, but nobody came. Nobody even seemed aware we existed. While everyone else fought over the remains of civilization, we remained hidden by thousands of kilometers of open ocean. The cruise ship had become our greatest weapon, not because it could fight, because nobody thought to look for us. Then the number dropped again. 10987. Every update felt unreal. Months of death, months of struggle, months of survival. All leading toward a single moment. One morning Maya burst into the dining room. Guys, Chloe nearly spilled her drink. What happened? The leaderboard. We immediately opened our interfaces. My breath caught. 4 players remaining, only 4, us and one other player. The final stranger, the final obstacle, the final competitor. The entire world had been reduced to 4 survivors. Nobody knew who the 4th player was. For nearly a week we searched every surviving communication channel. Nothing, no broadcasts, no sightings, no clues, just silence. It felt as if the final player had disappeared. Then, on the 7th day, the game announced the truth. The sky darkened, even out on the ocean. The familiar voice echoed across the world. Player eliminated. We froze. A moment later the leaderboard updated. 3 players remaining, that was it. No dramatic battle, no final showdown. The last competitor was simply gone. Somewhere, somehow, the final survivor had fallen, and now only we remained. For several minutes none of us spoke. We simply stared at the number. 3. Only 3 millions had entered the game. 3 remained, us. The same 3 friends who had stood together in the selection hall. The same 3 friends who refused to betray each other. The same 3 friends who had found a loophole. Maya finally broke the silence. So, Chloe looked at her. So, I slowly smiled. I think it's time. That evening we gathered on the ship's upper deck. The ocean was calm. The sky was clear. For the first time in months, there was no fear, no danger, no uncertainty. Only one final decision. The remove player option remained visible in our menus. Waiting. Last chance to back out, Maya said. Not happening. Chloe nodded. We came this far together. I looked at both of them. Back in the first timeline, I had watched them disappear. Maya had become infected. Chloe had sacrificed herself. I thought I had lost them forever. Now they stood beside me again, alive, smiling, hopeful. I wasn't losing them a second time. Let's test it. Maya took a deep breath, then she pressed the button. Immediately a warning appeared. Remove player from game. You will lose all abilities. You will forfeit claim to victory. Confirm. She glanced at us, then pressed confirm. White light surrounded her. Wind swirled around her body one final time. The air trembled, then everything stopped. The light vanished. Silence. We stared. Maya blinked, then laughed. I'm alive. Chloe nearly tackled her with a hug. It worked. I checked the leaderboard. 2 players remaining the game considered Maya eliminated, yet she stood right in front of us, breathing, laughing, alive. The loophole was real. A few minutes later, Chloe did the same thing. The process repeated exactly. The water floating around her disappeared. Her power vanished. The game removed her from the competition, but she remained alive. When the light faded, tears filled her eyes. We actually did it. The leaderboard updated once again. 1 player remaining, only me, only 1 active competitor, the official winner. The world shook. A massive golden light erupted across the sky. The game's final announcement echoed everywhere. Victory condition achieved. Winner confirmed. Player MIA heart. For several seconds the ocean itself seemed to glow. Then another screen appeared before me, a reward notification. The grand prize, a ridiculous amount of wealth, technology beyond modern science. Ownership of countless resources, enough to rebuild civilization itself. I stared at it. Then immediately turned toward my friends. We're splitting this, Maya laughed. Duh, obviously. Chloe rolled her eyes, as if we'd let you keep everything. The next morning the game finally ended. For the first time since the apocalypse began, the system disappeared. No announcements, no notifications, no menus, no leaderboard, nothing. The game was gone, truly gone. And with it went the nightmare that had consumed the world. 2 days later, we faced our final challenge, getting home. Fortunately, we had already planned for that. Chloe no longer controlled water, Maya no longer controlled wind, but we still had a functioning cruise ship. And I still possessed my abilities until the prize distribution finished. After carefully checking maps and coastal conditions, we selected a safe landing point. The journey took several days. As land slowly appeared on the horizon, a strange feeling settled over me. Relief. After everything that had happened, we were finally going home. The coastline looked different. Months of abandonment had changed everything. But it was still home. When the ship reached shallow waters, we anchored offshore. Then we transferred supplies to smaller boats. The process took nearly an entire day. Food, medicine, tools, equipment, everything we needed for the future. By sunset, we stood on solid ground once again. The apocalypse had ended, and somehow we had survived, together. Over the following months, we used the prize wisely. Exactly as promised, we divided everything equally. 1/3 for Maya, 1/3 for Chloe, 1/3 for me. No arguments, no greed, no betrayal. The opposite of what the game had wanted. With our resources, we helped rebuild communities, restored infrastructure, distributed food and medicine, supported survivors. Slowly humanity began recovering. The process would take years, maybe decades, but recovery had started, and that was enough. Sometimes I still think about the first timeline. The one where everything went wrong. The one where Maya became infected. The one where Chloe froze herself trying to save me. The one where we lost everything. Without those failures, we never would have found the truth. Without those sacrifices, we never would have discovered the loophole. Without that second chance, none of us would be standing here today. A year after the game ended, the 3 of us returned to the coast where we had first landed. The ocean stretched endlessly before us. Calm, peaceful, free. Maya smiled. You know, buying a cruise ship was probably the best idea we've ever had. Chloe laughed. Definitely. I looked at both of them, my best friends. The people who had survived 2 timelines with me. The people who had proven that trust could defeat a game designed around betrayal. The people I never wanted to lose again. Then I smiled. Yeah. For a moment none of us spoke. We simply watched the waves, and for the first time in a very long time, the future felt bright. The end.